We all know that Henry Knox completed his mission of getting Ticonderoga's cannon to Boston in early 1776. But how did he do it? It took Knox, his brother William, and many more soldiers and civilians to accomplish the task, using a combination of basic principles and innovative solutions to move their large cargo through varied and challenging terrain.
The smallest of the ordnance, squat Coehorn mortars, weighed 100 to 300 pounds, while the largest cannon weighed up to 2 3/4 tons. To simply lift such weight, soldiers used artillery engines, called gins. Such tools were vital for moving artillery and had been in use for centuries. These tall tripods used pulleys to increase mechanical advantage to hoist cannon off carriages or the ground where they could be loaded onto other vehicles. The garrison of Ticonderoga had been lifting and preparing tubes for Knox's arrival since late November, hoisting guns and mounting them on blocks of timber to keep the metal from the damp ground and facilitate their transportation on to the next phase of the expedition. Winter limited the options for transportation, but also provided opportunities unavailable in other seasons. The weather was still mild enough that a range of boats were used to move the guns from Ticonderoga to Fort George in early December, before the lake froze. After that, sleds were the primary vehicles employed. Customarily used by farmers to move logs during the winter logging season, sliding heavy items over the snow and ice was infinitely easier than using wheeled vehicles, which were less efficient in the winter and also contained more moving components that required maintenance. This made winter the ideal time to conduct this operation, rather than being an obstacle.
However, insufficiently deep snowfall delayed their progress, as General Philip Schuyler scoured New York for sufficient sleds and teamsters, delaying the expedition over the latter half of December. But as 1776 dawned, sufficient sleds, horses, and teamsters had been found to begin the expedition's movement south and north.
With sufficient snow, movement could begin. Nearly 250 horses were assembled to haul the load, with at least 4 horses to each sled and as many as 8 for the largest guns. Securing the cannon was vital over unpredictable terrain to prevent their weight shifting, and Knox requested heavy-duty 3-inch cable to fasten the guns down to their sleds. He ordered the touch holes at the breech of the weapons to be turned down to prevent unnecessary moisture from settling in the bores. But still, a series of daunting obstacles faced them. At least 3 river crossings followed the main roads that led to Boston, across the Mohawk and Hudson rivers. Crossing rivers required care, and thaws slowed the expedition as ice on the rivers thinned to levels unable to support the guns. General Philip Schuyler issued orders to his subordinates to facilitate the river crossings by strengthening the ice. Facing these occasional thaws, they were to cut holes in the ice, flooding the surface with water and dissolving the snow, and freezing overnight to provide additional thickness to support the load of the weapons. Schuyler delivered further explicit orders on how to manage the crossings. Approaching the ice, the draft animals would be connected to the sleds by a long log chain and rope. Their driver would walk alongside with an axe, ready to monitor how the ice managed the cargo. If the ice was beginning to give out, the driver could cut the longer line connecting the animals to the cannon. Cutting away the team prevented their potential loss in the icy river, pulled in by the weight of the guns. But the long length of chain and rope meant that the lost cargo could be fastened to a buoy, marking the location for future recovery. John Becker, who helped his father, one of Knox's teamsters, recalled using this system on the expedition, and as a result, only 1 gun was lost on the trek while crossing the Mohawk. Another gun fell through the icy Hudson near Albany, but because of these precautions, it was recovered as the citizens of the city poured out to haul the gun out of the river, for which Knox renamed the gun the Albany to honor their assistance. Once the rivers had been crossed, Knox's next challenge was managing the heights of the Berkshire Mountains in western Massachusetts. Hauling heavy goods uphill required strength and traction, but going downhill was perhaps the bigger challenge. A heavy gun on even a small grade could cause trouble, and controlling the momentum of a couple tons of weight on a steep incline posed a major threat. Schuyler's orders anticipated this challenge. Heading downhill, teamsters were instructed to reverse their animals and hitch the draft horses to the rear of the sleds. Rather than pull them downhill, the traction of the animals would act as a brake to slow their descent. Along the way, Knox hired local oxen to augment the driver's horses in tackling the snowy peaks of the Berkshires before descending toward the Connecticut River Valley and beyond.
By employing these simple but effective measures, Knox, Schuyler, and the dozens of teamsters involved accomplished one of the most storied feats of the Revolution. But their task was not done when Knox's sleighs dropped off their cannon in Framingham. Weeks were still needed to manufacture the carriages to mount the guns in the lines closer to Boston. And by early March, Continental soldiers would have to manhandle these guns into the works on Dorchester Heights. But thanks to Knox, they now had sufficient volume of artillery to meet the British and force the liberation of Boston after almost a year of siege.